Hello, friends. Welcome back to Reiki Crossroads and Connections, where we're exploring pathways and practices that help you to live a life that is grounded, spacious, and connected. Practices that help us to remember ourselves. We're doing this through conversations between a Reiki teacher and practitioners in the realms of healing, psychology, art, spirituality, and magic from many different perspectives. Thank you so much for joining us. We are really glad to have you along this journey. And today, this journey is going to be co-led with a good colleague and friend of mine. And I'm really excited for this conversation because of some of the particular directions that we're going to get to go because of this shared the work that we do. And so, Sally Carmichael, welcome to this space. I'm so glad to have you.
So glad to be here. Thank you for having me. And yeah, I'm really thrilled to be here. Having this conversation. So.
Yeah, me too. It's been a long time coming. We've been talking about doing this for a little while. And so Sally is a colleague of mine, technically in the realm of Reiki, but what you are doing with Reiki and in the program that you've been developing for some time is really doing what this series of conversations, Crossroads and Connections, is really focused on, which is drawing on connections between the system of Reiki and other systems of practice in order to enhance our lives in some very specific ways. And so I wanted to, by way of introduction, begin with a question to you, dear listeners. Are you a wild-hearted, sensitive person who cares deeply about nature, about people, and about the sacred? People like us can often feel overwhelmed by trying to fit into ordinary life. The way to freedom is by living our spirituality daily. Yet it can be very difficult to just practice or just meditate every day. And so Sally Carmichael is here to help us with that. She is a spiritual facilitator, a meditation teacher based in Melbourne, Australia. She's passionate about helping wild-hearted people like you and like me have the tools, the mindset, the inspiration, and the ease to create the spiritual practice that we love so that you want to do it every single day. A spiritual practice that works in your life in your way to help you not just cope, but to thrive. Because the world needs the gifts of our wild hearts. And I know, Sally, that this world needs the gift of your wild heart because of what you are bringing into the world. And thank you, first off, for doing this work, and then for coming here and sharing it with us.
Oh, wow. I feel a little emotional having you read that out. I'm like, oh wow, I really love that. Holy crap.
Yeah, it is a really it can be a powerful experience to have our own description of our passion shared back to us, especially from somebody who really believes in what we're doing. So yeah, that was fun to do.
Oh, that's so cool.
So as we settle into this space together, I'd love to just begin by asking you how you're doing today.
Yeah. I feel really excited to be having this conversation. And I feel like I've really found my vibe today and yesterday.
Nice.
Yeah, I feel like I really noticed the phases of the moon, and this is I coming to love every phase of each phase of the moon, or each day really, for what that brings. But yeah, I feel like at the moment we're on a bit of the energy is going up, and I feel like that's good for this conversation. So
That's awesome. Yeah, it's well timed, unplanned as far as the moon phases, but well timed to be in this full moon space. I think
yeah,
the word you used earlier was buoyed, and I love
yeah,
that feeling of being lifted, right, by the energies around us, but also by the relationships that we get to be in, the conversations that we get to have. So, Sally, I'd love to invite you to talk a little bit about the threads that have just woven together in your life to lead you to the work that you do, and then to describe a little bit about the program that you've been developing over some time that touches those wild-hearted places in us. How did you come to this work?
Mm, mm. Um, but I wanted to just first ask, how are you feeling?
Good point.
Is that all right? Sorry, I don't know.
No, it's so funny. I was so excited to get to the conversation that I was like,
Yeah,
oh,
sorry.
how am I feeling? Yeah, I'm actually again, I think I loved that word buoyed. Um, because I've actually been feeling not great the last couple of days. I was traveling the last week, which was great, visiting my dad. The last Crossroads and Connections interview was with him. Really great trip, but it takes it out of you to travel across country. And I just came back. I'm just not feeling great. My kids started seventh grade today, so that was a big energy thing. And so I was just kind of worn out, right? And then I sat down to have this conversation, and that feeling of connectedness and that feeling of just loving this kind of conversation, as I was saying to you before. These are the kinds of conversations I just love to have on any given day, and then to get to have them in a way that hopefully benefits other people is buoying. It makes me feel better. So I'm feeling a lot better now that I'm sitting in a comfy place with a good friend in a good conversation with a nice sparkling beverage. So yeah, that's
Oh,
where
that's
I'm.
yeah, cool. Thanks. I feel good. I feel good knowing that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I think a good place to start is a realization I had, I think sort of late last year, sometime last year, when I started doing regular meditation groups for a client. Yeah. So I realized at that time that I've been training for this for like most of my life. I don't know. I mean, that's probably not an uncommon experience. It's like, for when people find their thing, maybe it's like, my life makes sense now. All of these things make sense. I don't know. I just had this wealth of um, knowledge and experience that I just gathered over the years. And what I realized was I actually was like, I was quite like it really a bit emotional about it because I'm like, I really wish that this is what I'd started doing 20 years ago. Yeah, because I guess I started, my family's always like being a real supportive place in some ways for um, talking about spirituality and all sorts of things. So I think that was really good because I was I was just able to go there. I didn't even realize that was a thing that was, you don't think about what's different for you, but like I've got friends that are like, oh, that wasn't like that for me. So I feel like I'm really comfortable, and that's one of the things I like to be able to help people have is to be able to just talk about anything that comes up for them. But yeah, like when I was sort of in my late teens, I was playing around with meditation and yeah, I remember, I started playing with yoga and doing the yoga nidra and really having some amazing experiences with that. Reading like Wayne Dyer and all sorts of things. Yeah, and just trying different meditation practices and exploring. Probably not as much as in hindsight I would have liked, but if I could go back, I would have done a lot more. But yeah, that's life, isn't it? Yeah, and yeah, coming to Reiki, um, sort of in my mid-20s, and that just blew me apart. Just like, whew, wow, that was one of the biggest experiences of my life. Just coming to that. That was really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a really full-on experience, actually. It was like making a like a 90-degree turn or a 180-degree turn or something like that. Yeah. I started reading the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying. I think that's it. And in there's like a description of how to do like a silent illumination kind of meditation. And so I'm like, yeah, I'll give that a go. And yeah, I did that for sort of 30 days, I think about 30 days. Right. I'm like, I just like did it for a solid amount of time each day, like 40 minutes. And in that, through that practice, I got to this point and I'm like, I had this like enlightenment or experience, this openness. I'm like, just this experience of, oh, I'm much more than this. And just this awareness that like just beyond life and death, I guess. It's, how can we describe that whole experience? But yeah, that really was important. Like, I guess that's important for most people when we have those experiences, right? And so it's funny because now, like, these are some of the threads that have come together in this program. It's like I just spent first 40 years of my life gathering all the threads for this. And part of that is the fact that I spent like 10 years working as a consultant in like, sustainable energy, and getting really anxious and stressed in that. And that's part of what I bring to this this program. And also like being trans and coming out to myself and not really knowing who I was. I came out late in life, didn't really realize what was going on. But again, although in hindsight it makes sense, lots of things make sense. I feel like, I don't know, I've just got all these great ingredients that have somehow magically come together into this program, and it blows me away, this program. I had there's just so many, like, I feel like I'm on this magical path through the forest. And I met a new friend recently, like 6 months ago, and we're just talking, and she reminded me, or not remind, she actually really pointed out to me, it's like, when I'm creating, it's like through me, not by me. And that really helped me just open up, actually. I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah, I am. There's a piece that I wanted to just reflect back because it felt really resonant with me. This idea of kind of looking back at the threads that are woven together now in a particular intricate tapestry that, is our life in general, but in your case, in this particular conversation, this program that we're going to discuss the details of in a moment. And that, you mentioned like, I wish I'd seen the pieces earlier. I wish, things had happened earlier. And yet all of those pieces were necessary to make this tapestry. And it really makes me think of the book Let Your Life Speak by Parker Palmer, which was a hugely influential book in my life that I, came to through happenstance at a particular moment where I was really despairing about the state of the threads of my life at that moment. Like they were in shambles, they were messy, they were tangled, they were like not making a beautiful tapestry at all. And I really was feeling adrift as far as, both my family life and my work life in particular. And one of the many themes of this book was this idea that our life is speaking to us, and it's unraveling and it's revealing itself as we go along, and that there are these puzzle pieces, these breadcrumbs, these threads that reveal themselves over time, and that oftentimes in a given moment we can't see where they're leading. And there's so many moments where we feel that sense of I don't know where this is all going. I don't, it doesn't make sense, or I'm feeling compelled to go in a particular direction that doesn't make any sense, or I don't know which direction to go at all. And there can be so much despair in that. There can be so much, anxiety and suffering, really, when we're in those moments. And it was very heartening for me. And, part of why I'm highlighting it, because I know that so many of us had these moments, to hear from somebody who was at a point in their life where they could see the tapestry, at least, for that moment in his life, it had come together and like revealed, this is what's been speaking to me this whole time. This is what my life is, whether or not it's meant to be is who knows, but this is what it is. And it's this beautiful thing. It was very heartening to me to hear that. And it helped me to start paying more attention to those threads and to like appreciate them, even though they didn't necessarily make sense at the moment, or they didn't feel coherent with each other. And so I appreciate you sharing that piece, and even the little bit of like, even just the tender like regret feeling of like, oh, I wish it had been more or earlier. And yet here we are, where you're clearly so excited about what has come together in this tapestry. So I'd love to invite you to tell us a bit more about the program that you're designing, and what it looks like from this moment, just for today in this moment.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. So what happened? About 3 months ago, I think, maybe it's 4 months now, I finished the WINK program, the business program, which you put me onto, which has changed my life. I love it so much. I'm so grateful. Oh, it's weaving its magic. And I'd come up with a bit of a program during that, but I was like, oh. And so it's time to really hunker down and like, okay, we're going to get this out. We're going to do this so we can launch it and do a pilot and all this stuff. And so I blocked out this time on a Saturday. It's totally free. And I had this perfect creative bubble, like just that confluence of everything was just like, wow. It was just, and I just sat in this bubble, and I'd had like, because I don't really drink caffeinated coffee anymore. So, but sometimes I do. So I had like a really strong coffee, and I was euphoric. I was literally euphoric. I might have had a little bit of plant medicine as well. And I sat in this perfect bubble, and I just worked out like the framework for the program, or it came through. And then I was like, yeah, cool, this is really cool. And then I was like, okay, and I was ready to like start doing more stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, let's start creating. But then I was like, it just came to me. I'm like, no, that's it. That is it. No more. So all I did in that bubble was come up with the framework. But that was like the magic. That was like this, just this magical bubble. And so then I found some participants who wanted to try this pilot. And that really started pulling on it. And it really started coming out. I started creating sort of the workshops and that kind of thing. And it was, really that I don't think I've ever created like this. I feel like a friend helped me describe it. It's like, she was like, you're a participant. And yeah, I'm a participant in this. It's just, and at one point, the realization popped in, and it was like, my only job is to give space to the goddess. This is my only job here. I don't have to do any, there's nothing I need to do. Let it happen. And I'm just like, I'm blown away by, like, I'll come to prepare for something or create part of it. And just in that day, some things have happened which are seemingly like just any old thing, but somehow they turn me towards something I need to think about, or they make me think about, or that just it's a story somebody's related. And I'm like, oh, that's perfect. Just all coming together. And then what happens is we do, so I'll talk about the actual program itself, but just the creation of it is so, I think it's been so magical. Because what happens is, by the time the participant gets to each sort of part, somehow that part has been just, it's their progression through it matches with what the program already has. It's just, it's delicious. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of synchronicity and kind of working in collaboration with the unseen, which then allows, so much of a work, and I liked how you said, like, my work is to make space for the goddess and then let magic unfold. And, so much of doing that well is to create a container that is strong enough, firm enough to hold whatever it needs to, and then also be flexible enough to adjust and to move and to shift with what then flows into that container when we invite it and we open it up. And that's a teaching that came through. We share a mutual teacher in Bronwyn Logan, and this kind of teaching around being both firm and flexible has been so powerful and essential for me in designing my programs as well, but also just in life. And it just more and more, the simplicity of it and the truth of it keeps revealing itself in every facet of life, that anything that happens is happening inside of a container, and in order for it to reach its fullest potential, it has to be strong enough to hold what it's got to hold and flexible enough to adjust to what happens. And so I'm hearing that reflected in how this work kind of was revealed. Yeah.
It's taught me, God, it's just, it's changed my life. Yeah. Being realizing, that's how things can be. Can be.
And so somewhere along this journey, it seems to me, kind of looking, somewhat from the outside, as you were working through the WINK program, and I think I've mentioned WINK before in previous conversations. It's the Women in Community Business Coaching Program, specifically for solo entrepreneurs who are working in realms of healing, of art, of change making. And it really, made a huge difference in my ability to focus and understand my business as an entity, as a collaborator in my life, and then to craft it into something that felt really solid. And so just, for those of you at home, if you are looking for an amazing magical business coaching program, I'll put the link to WINK down below. But as I was watching you kind of go through that program, this theme of wild-heartedness started to come forward, and this idea of freeing our wild heart and the importance of that. And, this sense of back to the word buoyancy, right? A buoyancy that was coming through you as you explored the idea of what it means in our lives to free a wild heart. And then at the same time, if we think about who you're speaking to, this idea of folks who are sensitive and open-hearted and passionate, and I would imagine, in some way feeling really constricted around those identities and around those aspects of themselves. And so, seeing those themes coming through, I'm really curious kind of how that manifested in the program itself. So, yeah, I think this would be the perfect time to tell us a bit about the program, the structure of it, what a person can expect walking through it, and perhaps inside of that, what do you feel has the most heart and meaning about focusing in on this person who is sensitive and wild-hearted, and what that means to you?
Yeah, I think I'll start with that because um, I just, I want to help people feel comfortable to be who they are in the world. I really, oh God, it's just amazing just to see who people are, because I feel like we don't get to see it. The world doesn't necessarily encourage it. And there's all this magic behind this layer of flesh and everything, all this, this person who, I mean, this is life. This is life today. This is what we have. Oof. And I just I want to live it and see. And I just really, I've always just really connected with, I've always felt different. And I'm understanding why I felt different now. And that's really good. But I've always connected with, I guess, people. I'm noticing the pattern. I think I've always been drawn to people who are are very heart centered, and just, yeah, I just sense that kindred, and I sense their passion. And I think, yeah, where does this come from? It comes from this just deep, here it is. That's right. Okay. So when I was when I was in my early 20s, I used to play with like doing just, I'd call it automatic writing at the time, stream of consciousness stuff, learning to work with my intuition. And this one day I just wrote, and actually I asked the question, what am I here to do? What's my thing? And the thing that came through was something like, I've still got the thing I wrote down. It's like something like, you seek to speak to the hearts of people so that they can be free to speak what's in their heart. Basically, it's not what I wrote, but it sounded really, because it was intuitive and everything, actually sounded quite good. I can't remember what it was. Basically, I want to help people express what's in their heart, their truest truth from their heart. Really, that's like my joy, is just hearing that.
Yeah.
And that was it. That's what I want to do. I just want to do that. I want to help get that out. So that's where it comes from. I just love people so much, and I love existence so much. I just have so much joy. And I want to get that out. I want to get that joy out, and I want to let people have that and help people get it out themselves. Because when they get it out, when people get what is in here out, yeah, it's magic. Somewhere came the term wild-hearted. Wild-hearted, because we are wild in here. We're wild, even though we have all this civilization and everything. We're wild creatures of the earth. And we have passion, and we have things in us that have meaning, and they need to get out. And at other times, I feel like in other cultures, they would have got out, and they had places to be, they had cultural understanding around that meant they were valued, and yeah. So the program is all about people like that, that have this heart that's needs to get some stuff out, but maybe they need a little help to come to this point, and they want to get out, really. So, the first two participants that have done it, they're like, Ray, who did it, he's like, I don't want to pass this stuff on to my kids, and I want to be real. I want to be here, I want to. So, and the other participant, she's like, she's had enough of this, not being resourced and all this. She's ready for this change.
Mm.
And so what we do to get to the brass tacks of it, it's like we actually start with the brass tacks. It's like, we're going to create a practice. You're going to create a practice for 30 days. Maybe it's 28 days, maybe it's longer, but through this, so it's an 8-week program. So through the 8 weeks, you're going to do a 30-day practice. And the reason we focus on that is because it's something achievable. It's something that's like, and there's, so at the start of the program, the first few weeks, it's really about what is this practice for you? And what are you drawn to? What is it you need? What is the practice you need? It's not just let's do this meditation, or what are you drawn to? What are you already pulling to you?
Mm-hmm.
What are the threads there that are already there with you? Because it has to have meaning to me. It has to come from real meaning. So because we're not just creating a habit, we're not creating a meditation habit. Well, I mean, there's a little bit of that, but it's really we're starting to create a way of life, and it has to be real. So we spend some time finding what that is for them, and then doing really basic stuff like, okay, well, how are we going to fit this in? What are we going to do? And what can you fit in? And how would you prioritize this? Because sometimes people don't prioritize this stuff, and it's simply, or at least what I mean is, we think we don't have time to do something. And okay, sometimes we are really genuinely overwhelmed with lots of stuff, but sometimes it's simply because we're not prioritizing what we need first, that we don't have the time, is how I feel about it.
Yeah, and often we're also not seeing the places in our life, the spaces in our life where a practice can come in and be integrated. I think we often think of like our practice has to be some separate time that we that's always completely divorced from our life. And it's important and it's valuable to have those times where we're separate, where we're kind of cloistered from the day-to-day and the distractions. But part of what I'm hearing is like, what is the landscape of your life, and where are there the peaks and valleys that your practice is naturally going to fit, if you bring your attention to it and set intention to do it. Does that feel resonant?
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly how it progresses as well. So the first 3 weeks we're getting to like the practicalities, making a checklist or something of that, people can just tick off a checklist if that's what works for them. Just because that worked for me, I'd like just tick it off each day, and then it becomes part of my pattern. But then it's like, well, how we start to expand this practice into life. Otherwise, it's just this separate entity, exactly like you said. So by the end of it, through the progression we have is like, do the practice, and we don't even start. They don't even start doing the 30 days from the start of the program. It's whenever they feel is right. It's like for them. And the point of doing the 30 days is because then it's achievable, and then if they want to continue it, they can. But If they don't want to, that's fine. But the point is they can restart at any time, and they have more practical skills and more desire and understanding about making that happen again and again, just if finding what works for them. um so they're doing the practice, and then we start talking about, well, what's going to come up in practice, and some difficult stuff is going to come up at some point. And it's important to talk about this, because if we don't, it's good to feel good from meditation and our practices, but it's not always going to feel good. Sometimes the weather's going to be off internally, and sometimes some stuff is going to start floating to the surface. We're going to feel resistance to it. And sometimes that resistance isn't just the kind of like, oh, I don't really want to do it. It's because there's stuff in there we're actually avoiding. And so we need to talk about that. And start realizing, okay, that's what's going on in there, and that we're building up the interoception to feel what's there. We're getting more sensitive. So we're going to start feeling that stuff, and we need to start understanding how we're going to work with that.
That's so important. I really appreciate you highlighting that piece, because it's inevitable. I mean, for me, part of the purpose of spiritual practice is to, well, as Pixie Lighthorse calls it, gold mine our shadows, right? And like go in there and look at the places that we don't often look at, or we don't even know are there, the places that are holding us back subconsciously, energetically, or that are shaping our worldview, shaping our behavior, our mindsets, our thoughts, our reactions to people and to circumstances in ways that aren't actually serving us, but we're not working with them or aware of them, or we're avoiding them. And I think I appreciate you naming that there can be this fallacy that spiritual practice is supposed to fundamentally feel good all of the time. And it's leading us towards a lifestyle, or a life experience of feeling grounded, spacious, and connected, is kind of the shorthand that I often use. But the road to that, and like on any given day, in any given moment, that isn't necessarily going to feel good, right? It's not necessarily going to be, brightness and roses. And that's not only okay, but that's actually part of the point, a big part of the purpose. But if we don't have that context, and we haven't had somebody really prepare us for that, give us some context for it, and then some tools and some support, container to let that come through and to work with whatever comes through. That's that flexibility inside of the container. Well, what's coming through on a given day? Wow, okay, we need to really adjust for this, whether it's me and my personal practice by myself or in a group. And to have a community that is part of the purpose is to hold what comes through and to help us learn how to navigate those waters so that we become more savvy and more resilient inside of it. Like that's building our wild-hearted life. That's how we live in this resilient space. But if we're not prepared for that, and then we have an experience like that where, frightening memories or unpleasant physical sensations, or, thoughts that we'd rather not have, or feelings that we thought we had buried or bypassed come through, we might not understand why they're there. And we might, blame the practice. Oh, the practice is bad. I had a conversation like that. A student of mine the other day said that she had been really strongly confronted by a friend of hers who's like, no, Reiki is bad. I had this experience where this really, bad thing happened. And I'm like, I don't know what happened for that person, but it's possible that one of these experiences happened and they weren't prepared. And they were expecting it to always feel good, and then it didn't one day. And so the practice must be bad, or I must be bad, because, if I was good, then these things wouldn't be coming through in a spiritual practice, right? And so it's so heartening to see you explicitly name that, and to make space for that, and to weave that into the point of the program, so that people are well prepared to, not only have a good experience, but to make the best use of their practice, right? To put it to the most powerful use in their life.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love the what you were just talking about. I just did the letting go kind of week 5 letting go and stuff last night, and yeah, one of the one of the stories I love to bring up, or I love to talk about, um, Zenju Earthland Kit. Yeah, I really love her. Yeah, yeah. Um, and I just the first time I saw her talking on a podcast episode, and she was like, people don't realize once you start meditating, you just end up standing in your own shit.
Right.
And it's just in that really, I just love like how, yeah, just how grounded and just like real she and, people, practitioners like that are just so real. And yeah, I love to talk about that because it's so true. And this thing that came to me once was like, we love the flower, but do we love the plant and the leaves and all the time that the flower isn't there? Do we love the roots and the soil and the shit in the soil? Do we love the whole thing or just the flower? And I love to talk about that as well because I feel like we can start to actually love all of it and even love the hard stuff. And that, oh God, I love that place. That's really good. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of really good resources coming out of this conversation. I'll put links down below to the ones we've mentioned. Parker Palmer's Let Your Life Speak, which also really speaks to that. Can you love the shit, right? Can you love the all of the pieces of your life that's been speaking to you? And Pixie Lighthorse's book, Gold Mining the Shadows. And then I'll put an interview with Zenju Earthland Manuel Osho. So yeah, keep going.
And so part of it is about building a practice and doing the work. But the other part is about having some kind of powerful experience, whatever that looks like for the individual. At the start in the intake survey, I say, like, you understand that you're going to have some kind of, like, I call it peak experience. I don't really love that term, but it's a term.
Language evolves. You'll find the right language.
Yeah, yeah. Um, through this program, you're going to have that. Do you agree? And so it's like they're actually making a bit of a commitment to having some kind of experience. And it seems like something that you don't normally make happen, but I actually, in my experience, I'm sure it was too, you can open up and have all sorts of very interesting experience. And not that it's just about that, but I feel like that experience can be really formative. Like that kind of harks back to what I was talking about before when I did that 30-day practice years ago. That experience just stayed with me. And so somehow that's come through. And I'm like, yeah, that's really important to have. And that can be really freeing because there can be so much stuff to work through. And it can get, if we didn't have that connectedness and that openness, we'd be, what the point is the point of all this? Just we need and yeah, I mean, that's what we want, is to remember who we are and this connected whole interconnected being.
Yeah.
So then we kind of it's like we start working with that because this comes up naturally somehow, but we also do some practices to help at least plant the seeds. We sit there and we open up the heart. We use Reiju as well. People can go on a 30-day Reiju journey if they want to, as part of it, a Reiju a day, and that can be, just the experience of that Reiju. Each day, obviously, that can start shifting things around, and but just obviously the experience of Reiju itself can be that peak experience. It can be like, as remembering who you are, that
Yeah.
true nature.
Yeah,
Right.
and just to kind of context that a bit, for if folks listening aren't familiar with the term, can you tell us what Reiju, what it means in the
Yeah.
context of Reiki?
That's a ritual from the Japanese system of Reiki, which we would know as the attunement. It's a more Western practices of Reiki, and yeah, its origins, are in esoteric Buddhism, Japanese esoteric Buddhism, and it's really about, I love the way our teachers describe it. It's like, if we're already this great bright light. That's our true nature, and through life, this light gets covered up with these layers of shit. Like, we can imagine that as the lampshade, totally plagiarizing, Ranstina here. And so Reiju is like looking over the lampshade straight into the light and seeing to our true nature.
Yeah.
And each time it's different. It's just where we're at in the day.
Yeah, I love that, the way you describe it, and kind of distinguishing from the Western concept of attunement, which is often understood as a ritual for essentially granting us access to Reiki, that, we don't have access to it, or we don't have conscious access to it, or, it's dormant, or, different ways of thinking about it until we've received this attunement from a teacher who received an attunement from a teacher, et cetera, back to the founder. And that, that ritual is essential for us to have access to Reiki, which is a misunderstanding of the ritual. The way that you're describing it is really beautiful, in that we already are Reiki. We already are spiritual energy, that great bright light. And we've forgotten, because it's been covered over through our life. And that this ritual of Reiju, spiritual blessing, is about having a glimpse, an initial experience back of remembering that true self, that true nature that we always have been, we still are, but we forget, and we, feel disconnected from it. And so, having a ritual like that repeated within this container of this program, I would imagine would be, a very powerful experience of remembering in a consistent way, as opposed to having that experience only, maybe once in a class or occasionally. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. So invariably the people that have done it do have, through the program, some kind of really expansive experience, or a few kind of really poignant experiences, because the reality is their true nature is trying to get out. Their true nature is already there, guiding this whole process, and that's the magic. That's how this magic happens. It's really wonderful. I feel like I'm just sitting back, just like getting to experience this amazing opening that people are doing. It's just delicious. So yeah, we talk about sort of how do we start integrating this kind of experience then into our life, because that's important, because we don't want to be like, oh, I've had this experience, and what about all this stuff over here? It's like, no, we have to start working this into our life, understanding how to live it, and then starting to think about our values and how we live this true nature that we are, and finding, sometimes people do Reiki, they go and learn to do Reiki, for the transformation and that sort of thing, just to have that transformation, to feel more intuitive or whatever. And I'm like, well, we don't have to like change the system of Reiki to, why don't we just take the elements and introduce them into this program, and then people don't have to go and learn to do Reiki. They can just experience what it's like, and we can take this these amazing tools to help people transform in a different way, we don't have to call that another system of Reiki or something. And then if they want to learn to practice Reiki, well, then I will also teach that as well. And I'm in fact going to do that. So yeah, I really love that. Yeah.
Yeah, I really appreciate that approach, and I'm seeing that more and more through various practitioners. This kind of more expansive, creative approach to Reiki that kind of breaks open or makes more fluid this fairly rigid structure that we've inherited of like there's these three levels and you move through them in a sequential way, and really the end game is to get to Reiki 3 and be a Reiki master and then do all of the healing. But it's like, well, no, the purpose of this program is to live our life, or this practice is to live our life as an embodiment of the precepts. And we can get there, through a lot of different pathways, right? And yet, if we are diligent in those practices, all roads lead to Oz. We're going to be able to integrate being unattached to fear and anger, being grateful, being true to ourselves, being compassionate into our life in a way that's organic and that's true to us and that reflects our own wild-heartedness, our own particular self, and that there's essential aspects of the system of Reiki that direct us there. But the way in which we take them on, the way in which we learn them, integrate them, can be more fluid, more flexible as far as what a person's pathway is. Particularly if they're not, their goal is not to go be a Reiki practitioner and make that, their job or whatever. If self-development and self-reflection and knowledge of self and, becoming one's true self is the purpose, then that really offers a lot of creativity and intuitive direction to how we work with the essential 5 elements of the system of Reiki. And so I love seeing that fluidity. And then, within that, this openness, you said you start with this question to your participants of what has most heart meaning for you? What are the, what does practice look like for you? And then let's build on that and bring Reiki in as the support. Well, let's see, you mentioned a moment ago that you'd made a video on this subject. So I know and will share that you have a YouTube channel as well, Free Your Wild Heart, which through which you share perspectives that are coming through this program. I love that you are like sharing this program as it's evolving. You mentioned that you've run a pilot, you're about to run another test run of this, and it really is this emergent collaborator with you, right? That it's something that I love that you talked about it coming through you rather than something that you're imposing or that you're forcing into being. And so we in this conversation are getting to see that emergent process, and I really appreciate getting that glimpse. And so I'd love to, just as we come to a close, share with folks how they can learn more, how they can connect with you, so they can connect with you through your YouTube channel, which I'll link down below. How else might people connect with you in this work?
Yeah, so I'm on Facebook, Sally Carmichael, and I have a Facebook group as well, Free Your Wild Heart, which I love to interact with people there. My website is wildspiritwoman.com, and my YouTube channel is Free Your Wild Heart, and that's probably enough, isn't it?
Yeah, all the ways. Yeah. I love just, because of sitting with this conversation, one of the things that's really coming through that I want to just emphasize as we close is that there's a particular angst, a particular sometimes pain that comes from being in a civilized world that has all of the requirements and structures and constraints that we experience, and that in many ways benefit us and in other ways harm us. And at the same time, to be this animal of the world, as you described, right? This wild-hearted, being that is of the natural world. You know, we are not separate from the natural world. We are animals of this earth. And there's this tension between our modern life, which does not acknowledge, for the most part, except in salacious ways often, does not acknowledge this fundamental fact of our existence, that we are animals of this earth, and therefore disconnects us, or, you know, causes us to forget that connection. And that's a source of great angst and great pain, I think, culturally and just systemically for all of us and personally. And yet there's a part of us that remembers that and needs that. And so we are in the world, we are in the modern world, right? Most of us cannot completely unplug ourselves from the modern world and go live in the woods. Some people do, right? More power to them. That is not me. I live I live in the modern world, right? And so, you know, to see examples, embodied examples of how we can reconcile those two aspects of our lives, and to, as well as we can, reclaim that wildness, that sensitivity to the world, and at the same time function inside of all of the responsibilities that we have as modern people in the world. It's a real gift. It's a really important point of balance that programs like yours, the work that you and I do, you know, we're so aligned on a lot of the perspectives around integrating these practices into whatever it is that our life is asking us to do in a given day, to stay in a place of remembering who we are, and at the same time taking things off our checklist and getting things done in our life. It's a really like important fundamental skill set. You know, I love the practicality of what what you shared. How are we going to integrate this? How does this look in your actual daily life? Let's not make this a fantasy. Let's not make this something that, you know, oh, maybe I'll be able to do that someday when I'm on vacation, or, you know, like, let's really talk about what this looks like, integrating a spiritual, wild-hearted, natural way of life in the midst of whatever is coming to us on a given day. I think that's essential, and it's essential for us to have many opportunities to do that. And so I welcome this new program, this new avenue for people to find this place of balance in their life, through your teachings, through your wit and your creativity and your imagination. And so it's been really fun talking with you more, getting kind of under the hood a bit. Again, I've been like watching you develop this program from the outside, and getting to just have this conversation about what it's meant to you to do that and what you're hoping for the future has been really fun for me, and hopefully really valuable to you, dear listener, as you walk this conversation with us. So just in closing, Sally, I'd love to invite you to share maybe one thing that's bringing you joy in your life these days, and
Mm,
on that.
oh, you know what's bringing me joy? It's doing yoga again,
Mhm.
like reinvigorating my yoga practice and doing it. I've always wanted to do it like more than once a week. I've done it for once a week for years, and it'd be really good if I could do it a few times a week. And I don't know why that seemed unachievable or unfathomable, but anyway, I'm doing it now and I love it. I just love my practice. I do yoga, and then I do qigong, and then I do seated meditation, and each day is just focusing on that one thing, and but starting to expand that yoga practice and deepen it and bring in the real focus, um, and meditation aspect of it. And yeah, so I just love it. Love it. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing.
Yeah.
As I sat with that question, I'm going to focus on something that's very particular to today. There's apparently a hurricane happening in Southern California, and we're getting just a little like tail end of like overcast clouds and a little bit of drizzle. It was like actually legitimately raining this morning, and I live in Central California. It is bone dry and hot, hot, hot by August, and has been for months. And so this is a very unexpected little just smattering of weather coming through. And it just really lifted my spirits today and made the air feel really, really juicy and wonderful. And it brought me joy.
I
So
love that.
I would share that as our closing.
So
So,
cool.
friends, thank you so much for joining us on this conversation. And as you walk through your life seeking your wild heartedness, seeking your animal nature in a civilized world, may you be deeply provisioned for it. Thanks so much for joining us. We love you. Until next time. Bye bye.